Hi, my name is Dr. Michelle Maidenberg, and I'm here with Karen Millon, and this is her book. It's called An Amazing Divorce: What You Can Do for Yourself, for Each Other, and for Your Children to Achieve It. And Karen, if you could introduce yourself, I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank
And,
you
and
so much for
I'm so
having me.
excited to have this conversation. If you could tell, the audience about yourself and again, the context of your book and what you're hoping people will get from it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I am Karen Millon. I'm the host of the Healing podcast. That's Healing without the G. And it's a place where you learn and get inspired to heal. I talk about all the different healing modalities, all the therapeutic modalities, with the hope of increasing awareness and demystifying the need to heal. Um, I'm the author of An Amazing Divorce. And my journey was I'm a businesswoman with a went to business degree, business school, and had a career in business, and found myself very unhappily married. Married the perfect guy by the book, someone I met during the business program and had very similar goals. And soonly after, we're married for about 7 years, and we both worked really long hours, and we're very consumed with our work. And when I became a mother, I changed dramatically. Realized I needed a lot of healing, realized that I wanted to have a role where I was more present as a mother and perhaps give my children the childhood I didn't have. And it started rocking the marriage because it wasn't what he had married. And um, what kept us together in the marriage, which was a common goal and business ambition, kind of fell through. And we realized we were just very different people with very different values, very different likes and dislikes, living very lonely lives. So um, it was sort of out of we both started a career, a journey in healing. I found a therapist. I did a lot of EMDR and regular psychotherapy to really understand why I married him, why I was there, why I was still there. And one day out of the blue, I decided that I had to end it, and was extremely conscious in the fact that I wanted to be as peaceful and as loving as possible. And, was able to achieve an amazing divorce from day one, where we both focus on healing. I started EMDR therapy twice a week. So when I started the divorce, it was kind of like it's time to heal, versus a lot of people get consumed with the anger or the legalities, or let's get a lawyer and the financials. I was like, let's heal. And it was so instrumental because I started to move away from being the victim, the one that wasn't heard, the one that was misunderstood, to what is my role. Oh my God, I married my father, someone who didn't listen to me, and now I'm married to someone who doesn't listen to me. And I married him because I always felt that I wasn't good enough as a child. And when you're healing that through EMDR, that I'm not good enough, and all of a sudden you feel like, you know what? It's not that I'm going to sit here and complain about the clown. I'm just deciding not to go to the circus anymore, because if he doesn't think I'm good enough, I am. And when you have that perspective, it really eases a lot of the anger and the anxiety and the bitterness that comes with a divorce, to taking ownership and responsibility, and also a lot of empathy for your partner. Um, my ex-husband at the same time started therapy with EFT, emotionally focused therapy, where he understood for the first time what I was telling him for the past 17 years of marriage. I don't feel emotionally secured. I don't feel connected. We don't have an attachment. We're two chips living two different lives, where you cook, I clean, where there's not that secure bond. And he read that book, and he was like, "Oh my God, I let you down. I
Oh,
dropped the ball. I took you for granted." And it was really, really sad that by the time he sort of realized that, it was too late for me.
mm,
And but it was really healing and therapy that made the divorce so peaceful and so loving and so empathetic, to the point that um, we were able to show up for our kids. We walked them to school. We had dinners together. We continued to spend time together. I then met someone, started dating someone who he met and became best friends with. I was in my late 30, in my 40s, and decided to have a third kid. And my ex-husband became the godfather of my child and best friends with my husband. And so now we have this amazing divorce that when I moved to New York for my latest husband, everyone around us was like, you have to write a book. This is crazy. Like, this is nuts. I've never seen anything like it, because I'd be hanging out with the two guys and the kids were super happy. And one was taking one to choir and the other one was taking it to volleyball. And like, just the amount of help, physical and even financial and all, and friendship was amazing. So
Yeah.
I had
It's
left the company I started and I was trying to reorganize my life. And I wrote the book while I was doing that. And that writing the book sort of led me to becoming the host of the Healing Podcast. And then most recently, healing and transformational coach,
mhm,
where I use my 22 years of business strategy, vision, mission experience as a consultant
mhm,
to helping my clients, mostly divorced, kind of create a vision for themselves, a strategic plan, understanding what their priorities are, and also, most importantly, understanding the areas that they need to heal. To then, part of my service is that I pair them up with a therapist of their choosing and their liking and the type of modality that they feel more comfortable with
mhm.
to heal and achieve. It's a long
Yeah.
story.
That story is so inspiring. It really
Thank you.
is. I think I shared with you, I had, my parents were divorced since I was a very young child, and it definitely was not an amazing divorce. So,
Mm.
and I think even just the clients I work with, it just doesn't usually end up that way. But it sounds so lovely, and even more so for the kids, right? That they still get to thrive, and the focus is still on them, and all the things, right? Which it sounds like you really made that a priority, which is wonderful.
Yes, actually, it happened that when I got divorced in 2013, I was the first of anybody I knew. And it
Mhm.
actually was really hard for my middle child because no one in her classroom was divorced. So, unlike the 50% divorce rate, she's like, oh, mom, this is so embarrassing. But after I got divorced, I had a lot of my close friends and relatives getting divorced. It was like a wave of, if I tell you 10, it's not exaggerating. And so it was seeing how sadly poorly they did it, and to see the effects on the children, which in two of the cases were my godchild and my nephews and nieces. And one of them suicidal, the other one nonstop crying, can't go to school. And it was like, what, if I can help even 10 people that read the book or listen to this, I've done my mission in life. Because
Mhm.
it is so damaging, and it is statistically proven through meta studies that it is not divorce that ruins children, it's the conflict before, during, and after that does.
Mhm.
And I tell you that my two daughters were 8 and 6 when I divorced, and they're now 16 and 14, and uh, excelled socially, academically, physically. They love their dad, and their dad has been so close to their lives, to the point that they're here on a weekend, we're eating, and they get a text from a boy, and he's like, hey dad, what do I respond? Well, ask your mom, she's good in relationship. And we look at each other, and he's like, if we didn't have that, he would have missed that,
Yeah.
or I would have missed that. Or having that relationship where you can still co-parent together, and be friends and understand, because we understand we're all wounded. We all enter marriage as wounded children, um, suffering with our own
Well, and
issues.
trying to work through things
Right.
sometimes.
And it's not that,
Yeah.
despite our behavior, it's not like he's an a-hole and I'm a bit, it's like we're wounded and we're trying to cope.
Mhm.
And when you focus on healing, It really gives you that perspective.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. So in terms of the way you formatted the book, I'm curious, how you chose to do that, right? Like what message, were you hoping, right? Because I think in general, like what you're saying, it's an amazing divorce, right? And you're saying that it's helpful for the family, for the children, but I'm curious how you were able to format that in the book, to make sure that
Yes,
you convey, right? Because I'm thinking, right, like you want a roadmap. Like if you
right.
want this, like this is what you need to do.
Great question. Yes, it's interesting because I'm not a writer and English is not my first language either. So it wasn't like I wrote it one way and then it's like, is this really helpful? Are people really interested in just hearing the story or like what can they get from it? So, yes, I reformatted and my first focus is the importance of grieving. I think divorce is described in the ACE organization as trauma, and it is like a death, and
Mhm.
such is important to grieve and to cry and cry your eyes out. Let your ex-husband cry, help the kids cry, feel the pain, process it, heal it. I really recommend working with a therapist or a coach full on the first 3 months because there's so much grieving. Um, but because I did that, I see the difference in the people who did that. Massive short-term pain for long-term gain. The first 3 to 6 months are really hard, but when you do it right, oh my God, you are vibrant and excited and living the life you want to live. The
Mhm.
clients I've had and the friends I've had who didn't grieve was like, okay, I'm free. Let's sleep around or let's do the things I've never had a chance to do. Or in fight or flight mode, okay, let's get a lawyer, let's get the kids to school, and they don't grieve. You find them 3 to 4. I have clients that are 10 years after, 5 years after divorce, crying now, crying their eyes out, feeling the pain. So, grieving, I have 2 or 3 chapters on how I grieved, how I helped my ex grieve, how I helped the children grieve. Books I read to them, I would literally incite them to cry. Say, sweetie, sad. It is really sad. Mommy and daddy are not living in the same house. It is
Mhm.
sad. The
Mhm.
second one is healing, and I have a chapter or two on EMDR and what it did for me.
Mhm.
In the podcast, I have amazing episodes on CBT and how it helps literally and how it helps divorce and the beliefs you have and the mindset and the grieving. Um, the another chapter was on spiritual values. At the same time that I was healing, I was also reading a lot of books on Deepa Chopra, David Subak, and brought so much perspective on our journey and our pain and on being a good person and in giving and in going with the flow. So one of the values or spiritual laws is, the path of least effort. So in the divorce, I would be like, okay, can we talk about the financial settlement? And if my ex was not up to it, I'm like, okay, go with the flow. Like you always sort of push your agenda because you do need to achieve things and you do need to figure that out. But if it's going to, a lot of people get divorced and they're like, I just want to get divorced. And you throw a divorce party after a year. There's no rush.
Mhm.
As long as you get a mediator and you're going to be financially okay,
Mhm.
there's no rush. So that also really helped. And I seriously follow spiritual values.
Mhm.
Mindfulness, meditation, yoga was fundamental to
Mhm.
dealing with grieving, to dealing with stress, with that day that, of course, you divorce a person for a reason. And there's a lot of things they do that annoy you. And there are days you want to scream or insult. And I always took the high road and
Mhm.
did,
Yeah.
10 yoga poses or go to a yoga class and let it go,
Yes.
and not react right away because the entire time you got to think of the kids. How is this serving you? How is this going to help the kids? You get in a
Mhm.
fight with him, you call him an a-hole, he's going to pick up your kids in 2 hours. How is that going to turn out for them?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's a combination of healing, spiritual values, grieving, and my last chapter is on love. I think that if you're thinking of divorce or getting divorced, or when I have clients want to come and work with me, I'm really focused on healing because the goal is not getting divorced. The goal is being happy. The goal is having the life that you want to have, getting the love you want to have, whether it's with yourself for a while, but I believe in love. I believe in connections. I believe in the happily ever after as much as you can. And finding love was really helpful to me too. And
Mhm.
showcasing and showing your kids, one of the biggest reasons I got divorced, because it wasn't a terrible marriage. I wasn't abused. There wasn't any disloyalty.
Mhm.
Um, it was to show my daughters what a beautiful, loving, romantic, passionate, authentic, attachment based marriage looks like and feels like. And to
Mhm.
be able to role model that for them, because part of what my healing process was is that my parents were not happily married. And for me, that was, let's repeat the cycle. Let's just have another blah marriage. And I didn't want that for my daughters. I wanted to show them, and I did, and it was amazing. And even a year after, my 6-year-old, we were having a dinner party, and she told her guests, "Well, I know why Daddy and Mommy separated. They're so different, and Mommy's so happy now." And I wasn't happy. She had seen me crying and slamming doors, and they
Mhm.
have a memory of every time I got in the car was arguing with my ex, and they haven't seen me argue with my now husband of 8 years. So
Yeah.
we're a little less than that, but so it
Mhm.
is possible. And if you're gonna make that decision, it's with the intention to
Yeah. And
do it really well.
the word that, when you were talking, the word that kind of came up for me is compassion. It's almost like, I think your approach or what you're speaking to, right, really comes from a really deep compassion, both for yourself, right, and for the person you're with, right? Like, being your ex-husband, right? Like, even though it didn't work out, he's still a person, right? And if you have the value of every person that deserves respect and is worthy, right, and deserves to be treated well, that holds true for people that you may be disappointed with or frustrated with, right? So it's,
Totally.
yeah, so it's such a beautiful model, I think, which people could
Especially
really.
when it's someone you lived with. I mean, I was with him for 17 years.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's your family. And
Absolutely.
even if your ex or your husband is a narcissist, or that behind all that action is a hurting child. They're hurting. They
Yeah.
weren't taught how to communicate properly, or that doesn't mean you have to take it, and that doesn't mean you're like, okay, I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life, but you do have that compassion when you're leaving them. It's very sad.
Yeah. So it was so great having you here and hearing about it. And I can't like recommend your book more highly, especially for somebody, who's going through this transition and really wants to do it in a really meaningful way, and like you said, intentional and a conscious way, So I'm going to put your book up so that people could see it.
Mhm.
That's a nice picture of you.
Thank you.
Um, so could you share with us, how people could find you and any information that you want to give to the audience so that they could contact you or, kind of, have more resources from you? What would that be?
Thank you very much. Yes, my new website is coming up in a few weeks, and it's healing.net, is HEALIN.net. And you will be able to have a link to the podcast. You can find the Healing Podcast that has a lot of episodes on divorce and about 65 episodes on all the different healing modalities, um, on any podcast platform, as well as the website. And you'll be able to see my coaching services and what I offer, as well as the book. And I do have a list of resources. So if you are contemplating or going through a divorce or want to be a better parent or business or trauma, I do have a list of books and podcast episodes or people to follow. And I'm also on Instagram, on Facebook as Healing with Karen, where you can see some of the episodes and some of my quotes and inspirations and stories. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I hope people take advantage of that. And, you're doing amazing work and really helping a lot of people. So I have to say that.
Thank you
Um,
so much, Doctor.
so thank you, for your service to others. And I hope people do definitely reach out to you. Okay.
Thank you so much.